Hey everybody, Mitch coming in once again from not the Commander's Quarter studio, not a car like yesterday, or more specifically an SUV I think I was in. Today I'm actually in a truck. I'm not kidding, this is the weirdest week of recording potentially ever, but yeah, I'm just trying to become more adaptable for you. And speaking of adaptable, here we go, transition. Ready for it? You need to adapt to the new changes that are going to be coming with Duskmourn, because these brand new cards are game changers. Let's start with the cards that are changing the game in Commander from Duskmourn right now. So let's start things off. I'm just going to have Moxfield, separate these out to different, color identities essentially. So let's go with the white color identity. We've got Unwanted Remake, an instant for a single white mana, destroy target creature, its controller, manifest dread. So this is obviously very reminiscent in Commander to like Swords to Plowshares, Path to Exile. Now, those do exile. They also have a quote-unquote downside, right? I mean, ramping someone, a downside, giving them life. Yeah, downside, I guess, but who really cares? It's Commander. You got 40 life anyways. But yeah, Unwanted Remake destroys a creature. It unfortunately does not exile, or maybe fortunately, because again, the power of Swords and Path is crazy. This is a step down from those. That being said, still, instant speed, 1 mana removal. Yeah, this is going to see play. It does basically replace the creature. Again, they manifest dread. So they get a face down 2/2 off the top of their library, basically, and get to kind of like surveil 1 in that as well. So it is kind of like card selection in a way-ish. But also, yeah, they get a 2/2. So it's kind of like Beast Within-ish, but also Swords of Plowshares. It's definitely a card that's going to make an impact, though, again, because yet another 1 mana just removal spell that you have to be aware of. It's going to be great. Moving on. Reluctant Role Model, yet another game-changing card that you have to pay attention to. A 2/2, Human Survivor for 2 mana and white, survival at the beginning of your second main phase. If it's tapped, put a flying, lifelink, or counter on it. That's nice, but the important part is whenever this or another creature control dies, if it had counters on it, put those counters up to 1 target creature. This is kind of like the Ozolith in a way, and I'm sure there are some weird combos that you can do with this one. That being said, yeah, it's basically like, hey, do you have a counters-based strategy with any kind of counters? Oh, great. Did your creatures die? Oh, okay, cool. Shift those around to other creatures. So again, yeah, kind of like Ozolith-ish. Definitely a slam dunk in any kind of a counters build. There is that one like enchantment in green that costs 6 that kind of does a similar thing, but just with +1 counters. And yeah, we just reduced that cost down to 2 and also gave it another trigger. So there you go. Moving on, the final card I want to highlight in white, we've got a room, or should I say rooms, with Dazzling Theater and Prop Room. Dazzling Theater for 4 mana in white. Creature spells you cast have Convoke. Prop Room for 3 mana in white. Untap each creature controlled during each other player's untap step. This is one of those cards that, if this was just 2 separate enchantments, either half would see play for the right deck out there. I mean, giving your creature spells Convoke, that can be huge for the right deck. Being like, oh yeah, I'm just going wide strategy, getting a lot of creatures out, and all of a sudden, cool, yeah, play other ones for a giant reduced cost or even free, basically. And then Prop Room, though, this one even more so is like, you know what's really good? Seedborn Muse. It's not Seedborn Muse. Okay, it is not. Seedborn Muse also taps lands and everything else. This one taps creatures, but again, if you have a deck like, my Garth deck, which is built around the Commander's tap ability and a lot of other tap abilities too, you're going to want to include this because 3 mana for an enchantment that's like, hey, your creatures get to untap 4 times instead of 1 with each trip around the table. That is massive. That is huge. Next up, let's move on to blue. First up, Leyline of Transformation, which I guess is ironic that's first a little bit in this color at least, because it's like, oh yeah, if it's in your opening hand, you may begin the game on the battlefield, so it just kind of starts off the game for you, like it's starting off blue. Cool. Enchantment for 4 mana. As it enters, choose a creature type. Creatures you control are the chosen type and show their types. The same is true for creature spells you control, creature cards you own that are on the battlefield. Now, the reason this one is a game changer isn't necessarily like a power level type thing of it, where it's like, yeah, we just got another Swords to Plowshares-ish card. Not quite. This is more so like, this effect really doesn't exist in Magic too often. It's very, very rare for this to exist. It's like Arcane Adaptation, essentially. You don't see this too often being a thing. So, decks that really, 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 really want this, yeah, are going to really, 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 really want this. Being able to change creature types essentially, or give an additional creature type, I should say, to every single creature, not just in play, but in your hand, in your library, has massive ramifications for the right deck out there. And also just for my own personal, wanting, hey, let's get a 99 Leylines deck. I mean, not 99, but, an absurd amount of Leylines deck. Once, we get to like for another 10 years and we get, so many Leylines, we could just build all Leylines deck and just for opening hand be like, oh, I dump my whole hand on the table. I don't do anything else, but I dump my whole hand on the table. Cool. Moving on. Yet another room. Yeah, there are some rooms that like are very specific and like what they want to do, and other ones are like all about rooms. And we've got other ones that are just like, yeah, that's just plain good. Mirror Room. When you unlock this one for 2 and a blue, or play it, I guess. When you unlock this door, create tokens, copy of target creature control, accepts a reflection of other creature types. This one is, again, just basically like cackling counterpart cost in a way. I mean, like it's easier to cast even because it's not 1 blue, but basically, again, enchantment, so it's not instant speed. But yeah, make a copy of one of your creatures. The fact that it's a reflection probably really doesn't matter all that much. That being said, again, of course, we have Fractured Realm on top of that. For 7 mana, it better be good, right? If a triggered ability of a permanent you control triggers, that ability triggers additional time. I mean, that is a slam dunk in so many commander decks. It's just insane. Because, yeah, I mean, most commander decks, I'm not going to say most. Okay, a good amount of commander decks have commanders that have triggered abilities, and, like, the deck is built around that triggered ability. You know what's really good? Doubling that up. Doubling that up is huge. That's why, like, I was going to say Wandering Throne. Roaming Throne is seeing so much play because it's like, yeah, just double up everything. Double it all up. This is a card that, again, does have a very, very high mana cost. Yes, it does. That being said, the other side of it, which has a much lower and more reasonable mana cost, is much more easily playable and still gives you a lot of value. So, yeah, play that other side. Get a token copy of whatever your best creature in play is. Maybe a great ETB. Cool, good for you. And then all of a sudden you have 7 mana later, you're like, oh, by the way, I'm going to make it so all my things double up triggers. Oh, and I made a copy of a creature that had a trigger. So cool, I'm going to double that up. Yay, fun times for all. Mostly fun times for me. Next up, let's move on to black. And another game-changing card is going to be Withering Torment. When it comes to black, it has had many weaknesses over the years. And some of those holes have been patched. When it comes to removal, it's like, yeah, Wrath, good. Yeah, Edict Effects, good. Destroying artifacts or enchantments, meh, don't worry about those. Then we finally are like, oh yeah, maybe we should have some of those like Feed the Swarm, which changed everything for black. And now we have yet another one, different but similar. Instant for 3 mana, essentially in total. Destroy target creature or enchantment, you lose 2 life. This is a completely, fixed amount of life they were losing. Unlike Feed the Swarm, where it's like, I can lose a ton, but I really need to get rid of that. So yeah, being able to get rid of, essentially, again, a creature or an enchantment in a pinch, this can be huge. Again, this is not like, oh, it's an amazing card for like a 2-color deck. Probably not for most 2-color decks, but again, like mono black, you probably need this if you're going to try to deal with enchantments. Next up, speaking of dealing with things, Meathook Massacre the second, because we clearly needed a sequel. Legendary enchantment for XX and 4 black. When it enters, each player sacrifices X creatures. Whenever a creature control dies, you may pay 3 life. If you do return that card under your control, they find out the counter on it. Creature opponent controls dies, they may pay 3 life. If they don't, comes into play, they find out the counter on it. This is a brutally good card. Now, I am very thankful that they actually said, you know what, let's put a bunch of black pips on this so that you can't just chuck this into any deck. If this was like XX, 3 and a black, it'd be like, oh, okay. Yeah. Ouch. No, this one is, again, potentially a board wipe for a good amount of mana, yes. That being said, it's also an absurd amount of value for you. You're willing to pay that life every time, essentially, to bring your creature right back. You might have, some great ETBs, LTBs, whatever to take advantage of. That being said, yeah, Risk-Rat style decks are going to love this, being able to bring creature fodder back into play. The finality counter, sure, whatever. I guess if you have, like, Solemnity in play, you're like, okay, cool. They don't come to play with counters. Okay, I can keep sacrificing. Yay! And I'm sure there's some infinite loops with life-draining effects. That being said, if your opponents don't pay life, you're going to be able to steal other creatures, which is awesome. So, yeah, either they are getting punished a ton for losing their creatures, or you steal their creatures, sure, with finality counters on them. There are ways to, move those around, move them, whatever that is. But, yes, being able to say, you know what? Let's just decimate our opponents and just make it so that their lives are absolutely miserable. Speaking of misery, Grievous Wound. Oh my goodness. Okay, I think I saw Mark Rosewater put out some kind of an explanation as to why this one isn't a curse, because it was like changed late, but still, it should be a curse. Curse players out there are like, why, Wizards, why? That being said, it is a game-changing card that you need to be aware of because this is just kind of unlike any other card I've ever seen. Enchantment Aura for 5 mana in black, enchant player. Enchant player can't gain life. Okay, we've seen that before. Whenever enchant player is dealt damage, they lose half their life rounded up. Oh my gosh, that is spicy. This is, hey, every single time you get hit, it is the most painful thing in the world. The player that you put this on is going to give you the meanest look of all time. They're going to be like, dude, seriously? Dude, seriously? Seriously. Because it's going to take like 5-6 hits maybe or whatever to take them out essentially. Again, it doesn't matter if they've got thousands of life. Their life is going to go down so quick, it's not even going to be funny. And yeah, just being at 40, they're going to get taken out in no time at all. It doesn't even matter how big those creatures are they're hitting them. I mean, that affects the amount that it's going to get taken away too. But if you just have a bunch of 1/1 swinging through and they all get through, the opponent's like, oh, I'm gone. Ouch. So yeah, unfortunately, curse decks, yeah, I mean, if it's just more of like a curse theme and not necessarily you need all the curse synergies, yeah, you can still consider it. But other decks out there are just like, let's just cause pain. Yeah, this is a crazy good card. Group slug decks will like it as well because, again, just even making so a player can't gain life is very nice, but making it so that player's life is incredibly fragile is huge. And also evasive decks, too. Next up, Unholy Annex. For 3 mana, another room. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card. If you control a demon, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Otherwise, you lose 2 life. Ritual Chamber for 5 mana. When you unlock this door, create a 6/6 black demon creature token with flying. Phyrexian Arena has been topped over the past few years a couple of times, kind of, with like different variations of it. And this one's like, hey, you know what? Okay, one of the downsides of Phyrexian Arena is they have to wait till your upkeep to actually get any value out of it. This one's like, no. End step. You get that value on your turn, so well, at the end of your turn, but you still get it before you go all the way around the table. And you're losing 2 life, but wait, if you have a demon, which your other side of this enchantment can make for you for 5 mana for a 6/6 flyer with no downside. Again, 5 mana for a 6/6 flyer with no downside. Cue the people from 30 years ago being like, what in the world is that? We have to pay 5 mana for a 4/4, and it was the best card in the format. Yeah, so basically, get the demon out, and all of a sudden you're not losing life anymore. You're actually gaining life. You were draining your opponents while getting card advantage. This is really, really good. And of course, Demon Tribal decks are like slam dunk. But even outside of Demon Tribal, yeah, you're willing to pay 2 life for a card drawn for free at the end step, with also the upside of maybe even draining your opponents and having a 6/6 flyer for cheap. So yeah, this is a very, very good card. Moving on to red, yet another game-changing card. We've got Screaming Nemesis. I mean, when someone plays this, they're just going to be like, hey, everyone. And they're like, what? Ah! Just screaming. Yeah, that's obnoxious. Please don't do that. A 3/3 Spirit with haste for 3 mana in red. When it's dealt damage, deals that much damage to any other target. If a player is dealt damage this way, they can't gain life for the rest of the game. Okay. I love the concept of, again, like, can't gain life for the rest of the game. It's such a brutal thing. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, you know that one thing where, like, you thought you'd be able to get out of it? You can't get out of it anymore. Again, we talked about a card earlier that's like, hey, players can't gain life, or opponents can't gain life, or whatever it is. Yeah, you can't gain life, but now all of a sudden it's like, oh, no. You can never gain life. You can't stop this effect. It's basically like an emblem, but there's no emblem involved. We just have to, like, remember it. Regardless, this is going to be an amazing way to just like you throw this in play, and you're like, okay, who wants to attack me? Like, any of you out there, if you have any life gain in your deck or whatever, you want to ever get out of any scenario where you're low in life, do you even want to swing at me? Because if I have this up as a blocker, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm just choosing never to gain life again? Okay, cool. That being said, of course, if you have other opponents as well that have creatures, yeah, that are maybe power 2 or less, yeah, what you're gonna do is say, hey, swing at me, I'll block with this will survive, and poor little Johnny boy over there is going to get pinged by this and not have any life to gain. Oh, cool. Okay, shut down that strategy. Great. Good for me. So, again, it's literally just like a great attack deterrent, number one. It's a good attacker as well because your opponent's going to be hard-pressed to block it. And then, of course, also, if you have any kind of pinging effects, oh my gosh, this is so brutal. Blasphemous, that kind of things, too. Yeah, this is a really cool game-changing card. Next up, though, let's move on to green. Green gets all the good things, right? That's just like every single set. It's like green does this, green does that. Green gets everything, yes. Insidious Fungus, a 1/2 fungus for a single green mana. Pay 2, sacrifice it, choose 1, destroy target artifact, target enchantment. Draw a card, and put a land card from your hand on the battlefield tapped. Caustic Caterpillar. Sorry, you're gone now. I mean, like, obviously it can be played in, like, tandem, but, like, hey, yes. Green creature equals removal, load to the ground, and destroy artifact, destroy enchantment. Check, check. That's usually what you want to do from those. But also just, hey, how about, like, explore or growth spiral or whatever you want to call it? Cool. You get that as well on this. So, again, if you need it for removal, great. If not, you get ramp and draw. Yeah, sign me up for that. Also, fungus decks, love it, of course. But yeah, any kind of like deck that wants to sacrifice creatures or maybe have creatures as their removal, it can be huge for those decks, of course, too. Next up, Enduring Vitality. Okay, these are the types of cards where I'm like, Wizards, you didn't have to do that. And they're like, well, Commander players like playing this card, so let's make another slightly different version of this card. It's like, no, Wizards, no, we don't need any more of that. Yeah, we're doing it, ha! Okay, 3/3 Elk Glimmer, enchantment creature with vigilance for 3 mana and green. Creatures control of tap, add 1 mana of any color. When this dies, it was a creature, return to the battlefield. Under its control, it's an enchantment. Cryptolith Rite as a 3/3 for 3 mana that is vigilant. That comes back as Cryptolith Rite. Yeah, that's really good. Basically, Cryptolith Rite you have to remove twice. So that's a pretty huge card that, yeah, is going to see a lot of play. Basically, does your deck have Cryptolith Rite? Cool. Slam this in there as well. And if it doesn't, you still might utilize it. Again, if you've got like an Enchantress deck, now you've got another excuse to have like, oh, this is enchantment. Cool, that can be in that too. So this might even see, I mean, Cryptolith Rite is strictly better when it comes to like a deck that just wants a Cryptolith Rite type effect, again, because it's like 1 mana versus 3. But it's also slightly worse because this has to be taken out twice, essentially, whereas Cryptolith Rite has to be taken out once. And then also, this one is a creature itself that is still a 3/3 vigilant creature that also gives you mana. And of course, works for creature-based strategies, works for Enchantress-based strategies. It's a very good card. Next up, a card that is a great vehicle, but also doesn't need to be in a vehicle deck to be great. A 5/5 artifact vehicle for 4 mana and green. When this attacks you, may mill 2 cards. You're going to be doing that. Whenever, I don't even know why it's like a may. Like, okay, why is that a may when, like, you just benefit from that? Unless, I guess, you're milling yourself out and you don't want to. Whenever one or more land cards are put in your graveyard from your library, put them on battlefield tapped. Crew 1. You don't have to do anything with this for that effect to happen. You can just let this sit in play just as an artifact that costs you 4. That's already an amazing effect. If you have a self-mill strategy, yeah, that's huge. This is literally just like, oh, okay, yeah, you hit lands. Awesome. Put them into play. Do you just mill your entire library? Great. Put every single land from your library into play. This is a huge game-changing card. Next up, I love Leylines personally. Leyline of Mutation. Again, please, I want Leyline Tribal at some point, okay? Enchantment for 4 mana and green. In your opening hand, you may begin the game on the battlefield. You may pay Wooburg rather than pay the mana cost for spells. This is kind of like, again, the other Leyline where I talked about, like, there's only so many effects that do this. I mean, there's what, like, Joda and Fist of Suns. And now we have this. So literally having an additional effect just is a game changer. Because, again, this is an effect that does not appear in Magic anywhere else. So if you are looking for that effect, slam dunk this into that deck. And literally, you can just start off with turn 1 this in play and be like, okay, cool. I can pay 5 instead of 10 for this spell. Good for me. Next up, let's move on to multicolor. Let's highlight one card from this set. I feel like most of this set was like mainly like monocolor, which was cool. Regardless, Drag to the Roots, instant for 4 mana and Golgari, but you're probably never going to pay that for the deck that you utilize this in. Delirium costs 2 less to cast as long as there are 4 more card types among cards in your graveyard. Also destroy target non-land permanent. Getting rid of a non-land permanent with no downside for 2 mana, that's quite nice. So yeah, this is a really, really, really good removal spell. Again, even if you're paying 4, that's, I mean, yes, you're overpaying slightly, but not really by all that much. I mean, there are, like, like Exile, any non-land permanent for 4 mana. I think under end, that's that, right, essentially? But yeah, basically, most of the time, you don't really care about it being non-land. You're like, yeah, I'm usually getting rid of non-land permanents, not lands typically. It's always nice to have the option for land, but still, like, if I had to give up something to destroy, it'd be a land. And then this is like, okay, 4, that's overpaying a little bit, but also has potential to be much underpaid again at 2 mana. This is a huge slam dunk card. If you, again, have like a deck that has a spread of different card types, I would say, in various ways to have things in the graveyard, whether it's playing them, sacrificing them, cycling, discarding, milling, whatever it is, you're going to hit that, and all of a sudden, this is a great 2 mana removal to just get rid of something big. And finally, another game-changing card. Correct me in the comments below if I'm wrong on this one. And no, the MDFCs don't count. So do not be like, well, this MDFC, that MDFC. I believe This is the second enchantment land we have ever seen, except for, I think it was Urza's Saga or whatever that one is, or whatever the Urza land is. Yeah, enchantment land, hexproof, enters tapped. As it enters, choose a color. Tap, add 1 mana of the chosen color. I really wish that this was budget friendly because I could utilize it in my Garth deck, because my Garth deck is like, hey, indestructible lands. Awesome. Cool. You know what's really good too? A hexproof land. Good, because that deck's all about like enchanting the land. Cool. But this is expensive, so it's not budget friendly for me. Regardless, this is a really, really good card. Again, a land with hexproof means that your opponents probably aren't ever going to be able to deal with it. That being said, actually, when it comes to like austere command, if your opponents are running like a bunch of enchantment board wipes, keep that in mind that this will get taken out at some point. That being said, for Enchantress style decks, being able to activate Constellation just by dropping a land into play, that is huge. Constellation now Eerie as well. Also, it's great for fixing mana, of course. Just being like, okay, enters, and I get to pick a color, and it's hard to deal with. Good for me. Mostly, though, yeah, the Enchantress thing is the biggest part of it, so definitely keep that in mind. Yeah, a lot of great game-changing cards in Duskmourn. If you are interested in these, I probably should have mentioned this before, check out that link in the description below. And of course, as always, thanks again. Have a good one, and stay tuned for what vehicle I am recording in next. Yeah, I'll be back to the studio in the near future, but for now, weird recording spaces is what you get. I'm sorry, but thank you for bearing with me. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.